also. Nevertheless, I would like to announce the last speaker of today, Robert Geertsma. He's a senior scientist at the Center of Health Protection, National Institute for Public Health and the Environment in the Netherlands. And he's responsible for the provision of scientific advice to regulators on quality and safety of medical technology and nanomedicine. He's a member of the European Society for Nanomedicine and the European Technology Platform Nanomedicine. And since 2011, he coordinates the national platform Nanomedicine in the Netherlands. And the title of his presentation is Nanotechnology in Medical Devices, Horizon Scan, Risk Assessment, and Regulatory Developments. Robert, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm also very thankful to the organizers for getting the opportunity to give this talk. I had some trouble getting the slides trimmed down to a number that might fit within 15 minutes. So I'm afraid the aspects of regulatory developments is not very much included in the slides. So if there are people in the audience that would like to know more about that, they should ask questions about it during the discussion session. Nanotechnologies in medical devices, I think it's a topic that has not been discussed very often at the CLINAM conferences, and still it's a quite complicated subject. It's a very wide range of very diverse products and technologies. It can be related to therapy, to diagnosis, to monitoring, or even to prevention of disease. There are non-invasive devices, but there are invasive devices. They can have contact with any kind of tissue, using nanomaterials or other types of nanotechnologies. For example, nanoelectronics is an important area, or microfluidics in lab-on-a-chip devices. All medical disciplines potentially benefit, and as far as I've been able to identify, there is not an overview available of nanotechnologies as they are applied in medical devices. So we got a request from our Dutch Ministry of Health to make such an overview and to look not only at availability of products, what kind of products are we talking about, but also about benefits and risks of using nanotechnologies in medical devices. Since there is also not a database having all the products in there with a search engine that nicely gives you the answer if you put in nano as a keyword, we used several methods to try and get the overview. We looked at general literature, but also tried several databases. For example, the databases the FDA and Health Canada have on their websites, clinical trial databases, patent databases, and we decided to categorize these products for this investigation related to the discipline in which they are being used. I'll just go over the disciplines. I will restrict myself to the CE marked devices and not go into the things that are still in the clinical development or even further away. We are preparing a report in which we are hoping to describe more about this. And even of the CE marked examples that we could identify, I've listed only a couple. And during the talk I will mainly mention the categories. So within cardiology you see that on bare metal stents, on drug-eluting stents, on balloons, but also on pacemaker leads and on intravascular guide wires. All of these products are on the market, and what they have in common is that they have a nano coating on them. One odd project here is the one at the bottom. I don't know if you can see it from the room, but there is a company, a Dutch-German company, which is making intravascular guide wire dedicated for MRI. The iron oxide particles are no longer freely injected into the patient, but they are included into the matrix of medical devices, so they will not be released to the patient, but you can use them during real-time imaging. So if you are doing interventional procedure with a guide wire, you can see exactly where you are with the guide wire. The same kind of technology, particularly the coating to make the stents and other cardiologic devices more biocompatible, is also applied in stents and other devices, the balloons that are used in peripheral vessels. So this is mainly the domain of the interventional radiology instead of cardiology. Dentistry is quite an area in itself. We've been in contact with the European Manufacturers Association of Dental Materials, and they have made an estimate that there are actually about 3,500 different products on the market that have nanomaterial in them. And they also provided an overview with the estimated number of products on the market per category. And you see a list of products here, and I've given only the top 10 or something. You see that there are 600 different types of impression materials on the market which use nanomaterials. Composites and resins are also types of products where there's a lot of development going on, although some of these products have been on the market for 20, 30 years or even more, but they weren't called nano at the time. But actually there's a lot of experience in this area with the application of nanomaterials. We also looked at neurology, and here there's a little exception, because actually if you look at products on the market, none of them can be qualified actually as a nanotechnology product, but I wanted to show this anyway. You see the retinal prosthesis. Over the years, the size at which the electrodes are working has gone down, well, progressively, and I think within the next so many years, it will actually be at the nano size that these kind of things are being developed. Also, other kinds of prosthesis for the upper limb use so-called magnetoresistance sensors, which are made by nano layers on each other that can give you the very best electromagnetic properties. And at the bottom again, there is another type of nanotechnology that is being seen more often. They are scaffolds for neural tissue repair made by electrospinning, which creates the kind of environment that tissue will grow on. Another interesting area is oncology. Most of the things we've heard so far during this conference, and we will be hearing about it a lot more, I think, are application of drugs to oncology. There are some diverse approaches for this, but in devices there are also a number of products, although not so many, related to oncology. There are a number of in vitro diagnostic devices searching for biomarkers like PSA, but also looking for circulating tumor cells. There is, however, also an in vivo diagnostic device which has a probe that can actually be put in the blood circulation and also look for CTCs. There is an immobilization device, quite a different application. It's just thermoplastic device which can be made extra thin when using nanotechnologies. The well-known example of thermotherapy from Magforce, which has been described, I think, more often. And for me, a new discovery was that actually also similar kinds of products are being used for the localization of sentinel lymph nodes. So it's a diagnostic purpose, you could say. However, the diagnosis had already been made. This is used to help the surgeon to decide which kind of lymph node should be removed during surgery. And therefore it has been classified as a medical device. That's one thing I learned during this exercise, quite interesting. Orthopedics is an area where also there is a lot of products being developed and already on the market as well. mainly bone replacement kinds of devices based on hydroxyapatite and tricalcium phosphate, having nanoparticle sizes, which apparently creates the right kind of environment to eventually have the bone grow back into it. Also here, a lot of coatings are being applied, are on the market. And furthermore, there also here is a scaffold material. In this case, we identified a product which is aimed at repairing cartilage in knee joints. Finally, at the back, there is also a bulk material, a metal used for the implants, but inside the bulk material has a nanostructure, which makes it an ideal combination in terms of mechanical properties. Surgery, well, the examples on the top, I think they're relatively well known. Make suture needles and surgical blades with exquisite properties during use. Another one is using nanotechnologies during cauterization of vessels, having the right temperature control. Also a hemostasis product using a nanofiber scaffold, so again comparable with the electrospinning techniques. I'll stay out of the future direction, given the time. Another category is textiles and wound care products. Antimicrobial nanocrystalline silver is being applied in a multitude of different applications, but Operation Textile, for example, is one of them. Wound care products taking advantage of the same properties of nanosilver, but also using the properties of nanofiber material for having an optimal tissue growth back into the wound. Final category I'd like to mention is in vitro molecular diagnostics. There's a huge category of DNA microarrays, a couple of examples there that are on the market, and also lab-on-a-chip devices. There can be a debate whether it's micro or nanotechnologies, but I think in most lab-on-a-chip devices there is actually some nano component present. We did a review 2 years ago about lab-on-a-chip devices on the market, and we were able to identify 154 lab-on-a-chip devices from 75 companies at that point. So that's also quite a huge area. So that's the overview of different disciplines, different types of products. I have a few slides with the outcomes of the searches of databases. We looked at the clinical trial databases, and you can see that the earliest we could find was in 2003. And then a couple of years later, it started to show that there are an increasing number of clinical trials with nanomedical devices, most of them in dentistry, then oncology, and you can see the other disciplines that we identified. Total of 115 trials we could identify at this point. We also looked at patent applications in Europe, and we found a similar image. It started 5 years earlier than the clinical trials, and it shows sort of the same pattern. I must say the one in 1998 is not the same one that had the first clinical trial in 2003. Unfortunately, that would have been a very nice outcome. The patent applications, when you look at the various disciplines, you see that cardiology, dentistry, and diagnosis, continuous monitoring are strong sections. But what jumps out is surface modifications and coatings, if you don't look at discipline but type of technology. So as a summary on the trends and benefits, you could say that it's a growing area. Dentistry has by far the largest number of products. Nano coatings and surface modification are one of the most important types of nanotechnology applied, which creates biocompatibility and integration into tissue, and also antimicrobial properties can be introduced. Summary number 2 on this is the increasing use of nanomaterials to mimic the naturally occurring structures inside the human tissues. You can see that in dentistry and orthopedics, what it yields is that you get optimal biological, physical, mechanical, and especially for dentistry also aesthetic characteristics compared with human tissues. Electrical and magnetic properties of nanomaterials are exploited mostly in cardiology and neurology. You can really create an improved bioelectrical interface with the electrodes, and also on a quite different type of technology, you can increase battery lifetime quite a lot. In oncology, there's a different set of applications, but interestingly, this is the discipline where you do see a number of applications with free nanomaterials used for therapy and for surgical guidance. So in general, if you look at the broader picture, you can say that nanotechnology has a great impact on many areas in medicine. You can see the various topics I mentioned. And also I think that nanotechnology will help to change healthcare in a fundamental way, to create novel methods for disease diagnosis and therapy, new and effective tools for disease prevention, point of care, fast testing, therapeutic selection tailored to the patient profile, so the personalized medicine. And I've seen a number of other topics about this. So I think that this is really bringing a lot of opportunities. However, new opportunities could also bring new risks. And you should realize that nanomaterials can have sizes similar to the structures at subcellular level. So that means that they can also theoretically reach these subcellular structures, interact with them, so there you have some risks. So you say, well, just evaluate them, look at the safety, but this is not so easy. We have to work with a diversity of nanomaterials. Solubility, agglomeration is an issue. You have all kinds of interactions with the matrix. The quality of the nanomaterials can be quite diverse. Test protocols need to be reviewed, and you have to look even at the test medium, for example. So there's many factors. If you look at risk assessment used in invasive medical devices, I've given a few principles, and with medical devices, the same as for nanomedicinal products. You have to do a case-by-case risk assessment. But if you have a nanomedical device, you start with doing the same thing you would for any other medical device. But you have to take into account the specific characteristics of nanomaterials. That is detailed physical-chemical characterization and identification, toxicokinetic studies in case you have the potential for release of nanomaterials. You have to take account of any pitfalls in toxicity testing. Then you can use for this the existing ISO standard series, Biological Evaluation of Medical Devices, which contains a framework based on the type of device, type of contact, duration of time. Depending on the category, there are several biological or toxicological tests which you should consider to do. And currently there's also a guidance document under development specifically for materials using medical devices using nanomaterials. I think also this is taken mostly from the Schennier opinion on nanomaterials in medical devices. You can say that the risk is primarily related to release of nanomaterials from the devices, and you should also, this is important, include risk assessment related to nanomaterials generated by wear processes. Don't be alarmed on this busy slide. This is a table taken from the Schennier opinion. It shows you how the Schennier group has worked on giving some sort of guidance related to potential exposure, both external exposure and internal exposure, looking at different types of application of the nanomaterial, whether they are free or fixed on a coating, whether they are weak or strongly fixed, in degradable or in non-degradable materials embedded. And there are several categories. If you look at the left-hand side, there are surface devices contacting various types of surfaces, and there are 3 time periods indicated. Also, external communicating devices have 3 categories which are included in the table, and implant devices have 2 additional categories. And if you look at the numbers in the table, if you see an HL, for example, that would mean that there's a high potential contact, however, and/or external exposure. However, there's a low potential for the materials to be released and be free and getting systemically available. And then, based on this, the total approach is a phased approach, starting with the exposure assessment, and depending on the risk of exposure, with which the table can help that I just showed you, there are other steps to be taken, like a particle distribution and persistence, toxicological evaluations, and a final risk assessment. I would recommend you to find the Scanier opinion and look at it at ease. As a general final message, I would like to tell you that even though risk assessment is very important, we should keep in mind always that there has to be a balance of patient safety and looking at the availability of innovations as well. Thank you very much for your attention.